Hi, today I'm going to do my very first video review of a book, which I've never done before. I've done a lot of written reviews of books and I love doing them, but I've never done this before, so I'm not sure how it's going to go. I actually did like a draft run through last night as I was getting ready for bed, and I was like washing my face and talking to the mirror as if I was doing a book review of this, which is so embarrassing. But anyway, and I still actually don't know what I want to say because I'm kind of working through what I think about this book. But I guess my overwhelming response to it is it's a great book, but I didn't like it. So the book is The Orphan Master's Son by Adam Johnson. That's bad lighting. When I first saw this book in a bookshop, I got so excited because I actually thought it was by David Mitchell, but no, he just wrote something on the front of it. An addictive novel of daring ingenuity. Well, Mr. Mitchell, I have to disagree. I beg to differ. Look, I think it's a great book, and it won the Pulitzer Prize last year, and I've read a lot of reviews of it which are very complimentary, and it seems to have been really well received. And in some ways I kind of understand because it's really well written, and it's, I suppose, quite enlightening in a way, but I found it really difficult to get into. I kept putting it down and was never drawn to pick it up. I just didn't really feel anything towards it, I suppose, or to any of the characters. And I think that's part of the way in which it's been written, and part of my gripes with it are things that were intentional. So it's not like it's lacking, it's just that I didn't really like things that had been done, I suppose. I'm still trying to work out what it is about it that I don't like or that just didn't gel with me. But anyway, look, to give a brief summary, The Orphan Master's Son, the main character is a man called John Doe, which is kind of a play on the John Doe, like John Citizen type everyman. And the first part of the story follows his life. It's set in North Korea, I forgot to mention that. It's set in North Korea. It follows this man, John Doe's life in an orphanage. He is the son of the man who runs it, the Orphan Master, but he's actually not an orphan himself. And it follows his life as he kind of goes to sea. There's a bit of sea kind of voyage story where he's involved in kidnapping some people from Japan and various kind of escapades. And then it changes and he moves on, and it follows his story to a point, and then it follows a couple of other people's stories. And one of the key things about the book is being set in North Korea. It's meant to kind of show the life of an everyday person, I suppose, like a personal account of what it's like to live in North Korea, because there really isn't any. Just because of North Korea being so cut off from the rest of the world, and nobody really knowing what it's like for an ordinary person in North Korea. So it follows John Doe for some of it, and then it follows Commander Gar, who is, another person, a commander, obviously. And one of the things that happens in the story, which I guess, I don't know, maybe happens in North Korea, is that somebody will have a particular identity. So a person may be born with a particular name, and then if they do something untoward or are somehow expelled or whatever, somebody else will be brought in to take that identity over, essentially. So, you know, the person who was X is maybe killed or taken off to some sort of camp or put out to work, and somebody else will be brought in to then take over their identity and live as if they were that person. So they will then live with their wife, and take over their kids, and just kind of everybody will just accept that that's what happened. Like, that guy's no longer Mr. So-and-so, it's now this other guy, and nobody bats an eyelid. It's just the way things happen. So that happens a couple of times. So, you know, a character who was Commander Gar then becomes somebody else, or a character becomes Commander Gar and then moves off and becomes somebody else. I don't know that I've explained that particularly well, but essentially I personally found it quite confusing because as I said, I wasn't drawn to the book, and I kind of would put it down and force myself to start reading again to try and get into it a bit. And I would forget kind of who is who at the moment. So, you know, is Gar that guy, or is he gone off, has he been killed, or has he been taken away? And the other thing that happens is that it skips across time and place. So if you're not kind of on the ball, you can get lost. Or maybe that's just me because I didn't like it and I wasn't engaged at all. Maybe other people are completely fine with keeping up with what's happening and who is who. But I think it does have the potential for confusion, which is not really a gripe. That's just, I mean, a lot of great books you can kind of get confused on is the point, I think. And that's not about the book. I think that's just some people aren't going to like the book. Yeah. So I guess another thing that I found rubbed me the wrong way was it felt almost comical in some ways. And I know that there's this, the way that people respond to North Korea and talk about North Korea is interesting. And it's almost as if we, or people, kind of infantilize the country and its people, because we know about the kind of personality cult around the dear leader and the place that he occupies and the kind of respect that is commanded by him and by the regime from ordinary people, and you know, the devastating consequences when people do step out of line and do stop kind of towing the line, I suppose. And so every so often there's a chapter, a very small chapter, a couple of pages, which is basically the transcript of one of the loudspeakers. So every household and every workplace has to have a loudspeaker which transmits propaganda messages from the dear leader or from the capital. And so they're kind of farcical almost, but perhaps true to life. So, you know, things like the dear leader went to, I don't know, look at this village and, you know, he touched something and all of the flowers bloomed with glory of, you know, our great leader. And, you know, I can't even think of an example. But just kind of ridiculous, kind of fantastic things that don't really happen, obviously. They're just complete, you know, it's ridiculous, it's farcical, but that's the kind of stuff that people hear about every day. And I think it's easy to think, oh my God, I can't believe people think that, as if, you know, we just assume that people do think that everything they hear is true, having grown up in a country where that's all they do hear. And I just remember when Kim Il-sung died a couple of years ago, and there was this little clip that was played in the media all the time. It was a couple of seconds of this newsreader in North Korea who was telling that he had died, and she was bawling and crying, and people are going, oh my God, I can't believe people really are crying. Like, look at all these women wailing in the streets. It's just a political leader. Like, this is how brainwashed the country is. And you just kind of think, yeah, but at the end of the day, they're real people, and I think the entire country is almost stripped of its, I don't know, I guess humanity, or I don't even know, complexity, I suppose. Like, we just assume that North Korea is this, like, joke, I guess, is the way it's portrayed. Or that's the sense that I guess I get. Which I find really, not offensive, but just difficult to accept, I suppose. And there's something about this book that it almost seems like, not that it's poking fun, but it seems funny. And it's not funny. It's not a comical book. There's elements that are kind of ridiculous. And I don't know, something about it just rubbed me up the wrong way. And I've been trying to work out, the whole time I've been reading, what exactly it is. But I can't work it out. So I'd be interested to hear if anybody else has read it and if they kind of picked up on this. Yeah, so look, I don't even know what else to say about it. It's a good book, and as I said, it's well written, and yeah, it didn't grip me. I didn't like it. Maybe I didn't get it. I don't know. But while I'm talking about it, as I was reading it and while I'm talking about it, I kept thinking about this other book about North Korea that I read called Nothing to Envy, which I have here, which is such a brilliant book. And if you're at all interested in North Korea, I would highly recommend you read this book. It's quite short, and it's basically, it's a non-fiction book written by, who is she? She's a journalist. I think she worked with the BBC or something. I can't quite remember. But she kind of had met and interviewed and spoken with a number of people who were, of North Korean people who had defected and moved to South Korea or America or wherever, and have talked about their experiences and what life is actually like there. Which is, I think, based on an interview with the author that's in the back of this book. It's quite short, and I actually enjoyed that interview more than I enjoyed the rest of the book. But Adam Johnson talks about that being his aim. He wanted to explore what it's like for an everyday person in North Korea and what it's like to kind of conduct everyday life just as a normal person, and whether it's possible to have a normal life in this kind of state. And some of the questions and answers are really enlightening, because he did actually go there a couple of years after he started writing the book. And I suppose when you go to North Korea, at first it's really hard to go. You can't just decide you want to go on a holiday. And when you do go, everything you see, everything you're shown is extremely tightly controlled. You're taken around by minders who have had particular training about how to speak to foreigners, because it's actually illegal for just a normal person to speak to a foreigner. So you get a very sanitized view of the country. And obviously, I mean, you know, it's kind of an open secret that that's what you get. You can't just go around by yourself. You have to be taken and shown, and yeah, it's all kind of very, very tightly controlled. But he talks about that and, you know, the experiences, which I found a lot more rewarding, engaging, and just good to read than the book proper. Maybe that's just me. But yeah, going back to this book, this is such an enlightening and interesting book, and it does tell about the extreme hardship and devastation and famine that people suffer, and almost like human, you know, induced famine, almost as a means of kind of controlling people, which, you know, various countries throughout history have seen. And it's extremely, I don't even know, it's educational, I suppose. It's a really great book. It's easy to read, and it's the kind of book that you read and you just want everybody to read. And I know I gave this book to everybody that I knew, and I actually read it on the recommendation of a friend of my mum's who went to China to live for a year, and he said it's such a great book, and you know, so I would highly recommend this one. And it's a funny way to end a review of a different book, but anyway, that was kind of my review of this, The Orphan Master's Son. I don't think I did a very good job, but I just don't know what to say about it, I suppose. I'd be interested to hear what other people think if they've read it, because I seem to have read really great reviews. People really loved it, with the exception of a couple of people who just loathed it, and this is based on Goodreads reviews mostly. So yeah, I'd be interested to hear whether I don't know, whether anyone had a similar kind of response as I did. Yeah, so I think that's all.